Coach, this is what it's all about. It is rivalry weekend, and the arguably biggest rivalry in college football yielding what is inarguably the biggest game in college football.
You know what's strange about games like this? You want them to get there so fast. You know what I mean? I mean, back in September we're talking, but when Michigan started winning some games and we kind of sensed that, hey, they're better. You know, they're for real. They're a real football team this year. And then the rankings come out, and you could tell that the committee members like Michigan, man, everybody's saying, let's hurry up. Don't screw anything up between now and this game, and here we are.
I know you never want to wish the time away, but when you get to a game like this, where you thought all year, wow, wouldn't it be something if?
Yes.
And then here you are.
Absolutely. And this, you know, it's, I mean, this is a game where everybody knows what's at stake, you know, from the standpoint of Big Ten championship and playoffs. But I really think that for Michigan, you know, the goal all year for Ohio State, let me just back up, was to be here and to get into college football playoff and win a national championship.
Right.
Every coach says that in August. We're going to win. We're going to win our conference, and if we win our conference, we're going to have a chance for the playoffs. But realistically, that's not going to happen for most teams. Where it is a reality for Ohio State. Well, now Michigan is here, you know, with those same attainable goals, and even more so for Michigan. Even more so. I mean, this game, we know what it can mean about getting into playoffs. But, you know, when I took the USC job, I went out there and our president talked to us, gave us an orientation of USC. And I'd never been there. I knew one guy on the staff. I left Oklahoma State and went out there, and I'm going to coach the defensive line at USC. Okay.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and the president shows us a video of the campus and how we're going to. Okay, so then he leaves, and we all start getting up. And the assistant vice chancellor says, gentlemen, hold on one second. As soon as the chancellor closed the door, he says, let me just make something real clear to you guys, okay? There's a direct correlation at USC and these major schools with how many games we win and how much money we can generate from our alumni. And I'm thinking to myself, what are all the benefits of Michigan? I mean, there's going to be recruits. And, you know, so, I mean, from alumni excitement again. And they've always been. Hey, Michigan got. But, and then the other point, too, is I remember being at the University of Miami now, and with Lloyd Carr at that time being the head coach, and they would come into Florida. And, I mean, they were a national strong recruiting. Not that they haven't been. You know, but you win a game like this for Michigan, and all of a sudden, I mean, just from a national perspective, it just moves them to another level.
No doubt. It is our big story today, Ohio State and Michigan. And as you know, both teams come in playing their best football. OSU, fresh off an annihilation of Michigan State, had 500 yards of offense and scored 49 points in the first half. Wolverines went on the road and pounded Maryland, winning by 41. Got to 10 wins for the fourth time under Jim Harbaugh, now one win away from their first ever Big Ten championship game.
Both teams have a lot on the line. It's a true playoff in that sense. In the college football playoff world, I mean, this is the start of the playoffs. You know, the team that wins will advance. The team that doesn't won't. So, you know, it is that. And it's also, you know, the big game, the rivalry.
It is a rivalry. The Buckeyes, of course, have dominated of late. 8 straight wins, their longest streak in the history of the series. A win Saturday would tie the longest mark for either side, which was set well over 100 years ago by the Wolverines. Combined with the 7-game streak from 2004 to 2010, OSU has won 15 of the last 16 meetings between these two bitter rivals. And what do you make of Harbaugh's comments? The notion, Coach, that this is essentially the beginning of the college football playoff.
I love Jim. His playoff started about 8 weeks ago, okay, in my mind. I mean, really, they couldn't afford to lose. And
certainly not after they lost to Michigan State.
After the Michigan State game, correct, Robert. And so that's when the playoffs started. And they're here now and deserve to be here. So, no, I loved what he said. And, he's been here before, at the collegiate level and at the professional level. So he's got a plan. It's not like the first time head coach that's ever been in this situation and you're calling around saying, what do you want to do preparation-wise and how much do we want to add game plan-wise? He's got a plan. He knows exactly what he wants to do. Now they got to get it done.
Let's get to the X's and O's. I always love doing this with you before big games. Let's start with slowing down Ohio State's offense. I mean, to me, the most dominant unit in this game is Ohio State's offense. Michigan has a really good defense. So what do?
Well, the key is, and I used to always look at this, and if the young quarterbacks and the inexperienced quarterbacks take a lot more chances of pressuring the quarterback. Those veteran guys that have been there and seen it all, you're probably not going to fool them, and you're probably not going to get to them. They're going to sense the pressure. They're going to anticipate the pressure and get rid of the ball. So now you got C.J. Stroud. You got a young quarterback. This kid's only been sacked, 9 times all year? I mean, that's twice as much as Justin Fields was sacked when he was at Ohio State. So this kid give the offensive line some credit.
They're great.
But this kid is...
Especially in pass blocking. They're great.
But this kid's making good decisions to get rid of the ball. How do you slow them down? They've got 3 receivers. The key is every defensive coach, goes into the game saying, we got to stop the run and go to the pass. I would go the other way with Ohio State.
Right.
I would come in and say, you know what? They want to try to knock us out with the pass. Let's see if Ohio State can go 8, 10-play drives and score touchdowns and score points like they do. So I would play a little bit more conservative on the back end and from a coverage standpoint. Now, Ohio State with Michigan, you're going to have to mix it up on them and pressure this kid a little bit. Because they have the 2 defensive ends. The real chess match, what I want to see, you got 3 receivers. They've got a very good tight end, Ohio State, and they've got a good running back that are somewhat patch receivers. These guys all caught less than 300 yards all year. The receivers are 1,000-yard receivers, 3 of them. So my point is, how are you going to protect against these? It all starts with protection. How are we going to block these 2 defensive ends and the protection? You're going to have to use the backs and the tight ends. I would say, you know what? We don't need these guys this week. 3 receivers is plenty if I'm Ryan Day. But we got to be able to get the ball thrown. So I'm going to use my tight end as a blocker this week, and I'm going to use my running back, Henderson. He's going to be a blocker this week, Maybe some checks down and screens, but we are going to get the ball thrown. And I would come up with routes now with my 3 receivers. And if they can do that, if they can eliminate Michigan's pressure, then I say Ohio State's got a big advantage. And you don't need 5 guys going out, but you need to have your quarterback time where he can, particularly when you got the receivers Ohio State does. So I would, from Michigan's standpoint, I would mix up some pressure. Right. Mix up some pressure to help those 2 defensive ends because you got to anticipate they're going to have a plan. They're not going to let us run around them. So now what are we going to do? We're going to try to create a little bit of pressure inside, mix it up on them, and not give up the big play. That's the key.
Yeah, to your point, Ohio State's pass protection really good. Just 13 sacks allowed this year, 2nd fewest in the Big Ten. But again, Ojabo and Hutchinson, top of the league, both of them in sacks this year. Now, if there were to be one relative weakness, I'd say, like if you're considering the 4 units, take special teams out of it, it's probably Ohio State's defense. They are coming off their best performance of the year against Michigan State, but what problems does Michigan present, the 2nd highest scoring offense in the Big Ten, for Ohio State's D?
They got to keep, you got to look at it from a whole team standpoint. And Ohio State, what was it? 21-0 last week, in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Walker, Heisman Trophy candidate gets 6 carries or 8 carries in the whole game. Why did that? Everyone's saying, what happened when they're down? And the offensive coordinator saying, if we hand it off in 3 plays in a cloud of dust and kick a field goal,
that doesn't really get you anywhere.
That doesn't get us anywhere. So they're forced to open up, and that's generally what happens with Ohio State. Their defense, and the reason they're so good getting pressures and so good getting sacks, I think, is because they jump out in front. The offenses become one-dimensional. They have to throw the ball. So to answer your question, what Michigan needs to do, Michigan needs to keep this game close enough and run the ball, which is a big part of it. Their running game, if Michigan becomes one-dimensional, throw the ball, they can't win this game. They can't win this game. They need this backbone, and the lifeline of their football team is being physical and running the football.
Right.
And so that's what they need to do and really challenge. And if they fall behind by 10, don't give up on it, Jim. Don't give up on it. Stay with it and come back at them and cap back at them. You're going to play the turnover battle. You got to play special teams. Don't just get so focused on the offense. And what's Ohio State? You got to play the whole game. What's happening with my defense? What's happening with my special teams? This is how you take it to the fourth quarter. And you take it to the fourth quarter. I'll tell you what. All the pressure now is on Ohio State. They don't want this game to be a fourth quarter game.
How would you handle J.J. McCarthy in this game? He made a critical mistake against Michigan State, and then we didn't really see him much. But then in this Maryland game, he was a huge part of what they did. He was 5 for 5. He adds a great dimension. He threatens you with his legs. He's got a rocket for an arm, and yet he's young. So what's the balancing act there of putting him in the game?
Well, for me, it wouldn't be much of one. I would not. I'm hoping that Jim played him last week because all the things you said are right. The kid's super talented. He's going to be a great player, but you don't want him to transfer either, okay? So I think half the reason for playing him last week was to get him some plays. He scored, he 5 for 5 throwing the ball, but keep him happy. Keep him happy. This game right now, hey, Cade McNamara, he fits exactly what Jim wants to do at this point. He's throwing touchdowns 14-2. That's fantastic numbers. I mean, that's Joe Namath numbers, 14 and 2 touchdowns to interceptions. Are you kidding me?
You're dating yourself.
I'm dating myself, okay? Tom Brady.
There you go. Now you're speaking a language the kids understand. Yeah.
Okay? So, but the point that I'm making is this kid handles the offense, and I think he's a better athlete. If I'm Jim today or this week, I'm going to do a few boots. I'm going to maybe do a few rollouts. I'm going to use his athletic ability just enough to kind of shake up this Ohio State defense because I think he's capable of that. But he's had the big games. He's the mature guy. Boy, you don't want to take a chance and I don't want to say what happened in the Michigan State game, right?
Yeah.
Get in there and put the young kid in there and ball go on the ground. I mean, because you lose a team that way. You just don't lose a game, possibly. You lose the whole football team. So don't try to outsmart anybody in this. Just do what you do best in these games.
Pretty cool scene Sunday night in Evanston. Northwestern celebrating its first ever Field Hockey National Championship and the first for any Big Ten team in 20 years. Sophomore midfielder Maddie Zimmer tallied one of the 2 goals in the Cats' win over Liberty, was named the tournament's most valuable player. And Maddie Zimmer is joining us now. She is today's big interview. Maddie, congratulations. We are a little less than 48 hours since you guys won that national championship. How would you describe the time since that final whistle blew and you were a national champ up until right now?
It's honestly still feels so surreal. I can't believe that we've achieved this. We worked so hard for this. COVID really tested us and challenged us, but I think we rose to that challenge, and we're all just so excited, and I couldn't be happier for my teammates, my coaches, the rest of Northwestern.
What's been the coolest moment since the end of the game?
The coolest moment? Honestly, probably right at the end of the game. I jumped on Annabelle Skubish's back, and We did like a big dog pile. And I mean, I think that's a dream that every field hockey player has since they're little, dog pile at the end of the game. And I keep replaying that moment over in my head. It's amazing.
I loved the scene that we just showed of you getting off the bus there on North Campus and having all the marching band and lots of Northwestern fans there to greet you. Give us a sense of what that trip home was like.
It's a pretty long trip home, but it was a nonstop party. We couldn't wait to get back. Seeing everyone lined up there, the band, that was insane. We were so excited and really, really happy that the rest of the athletic community wanted to share this with us and was there to support us. We really couldn't have done it without all of them. And it was a really, really cool experience to share with everyone.
Let's talk about the game a little bit. Liberty really took it to you at the beginning of the game. I mean, they came out with a ton of energy in the first quarter. They earned a bunch of corners, and it felt like they were kind of controlling the game early on. What was going through your head in that first quarter?
The first quarter obviously was a little shaky. They outshot us and had more corners, but I think we were a little nervous in the beginning, but Annabelle is just rock solid in the goal. We have one of the best defensive corner units in the country, and they really stepped up when we needed it most. So credit to them in that first quarter. They really kept us in the game. So
you completely dominated the second half. I mean, you totally flipped the script on this game. What changed?
At halftime, we really had to talk about the kind of energy we were bringing. We were playing a little frantic, so we knew we had to keep the energy high, but kind of level ourselves so that we were playing our hockey. We weren't focused on the atmosphere or the other team. It was just us, and I think that we really started to play our game in the second half.
Your team lost 5 games this year, which is tied for the most ever for a field hockey national champion. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Now, part of it is the Big Ten was insanely good, and we chronicled that all year, just how dominant this league was. But it did seem like you guys went from being a very good team to being a great team. Was there a moment where you felt like that switch got flipped for your team?
I think the first game of the NCAA tournament for us, when we played the 3-time defending national champs, UNC, and we came out on fire, attacking. Our defense was really, really solid. And I think that was the moment when we realized, hey, we could really go all the way. Of course, Tracy, Will, and Georgia believed in us the entire time. They knew we could do it. But I think that was the moment that the team kind of realized, we could do it.
You mentioned Tracy Fuchs, and this is obviously an amazing moment for her. She won as an assistant coach. She won as a player as well. She's one of the great players in the history of the game. What does it mean to be coached by someone who is so legendary and who has been there, who has walked the same path that you are as a player?
Yeah, Tracy is such a role model for me. She is a big reason why I decided to come to Northwestern. She had a vision in mind. She wanted to win a national championship. I wanted to win a national championship, and I knew that she could take us there. She's been incredible throughout my entire field hockey journey. She's incredibly supportive of all of the USA events that we're going to, and she's just the coolest person. I'm so lucky to have her as a coach, and she will be a mentor for many years to come.
Yeah, you were a top 10 national recruit. You were in a field hockey hotbed of central Pennsylvania. As you thought about different schools, I mean, Northwestern has a history of being very good in field hockey, but it's a long time ago. I mean, it's certainly not in your lifetime where they've been anywhere near this level. What made you decide Northwestern, maybe rather than some schools that were annually playing in the Final Four?
I think that I could really see the potential with the program. They're recruiting world-class players. Tracy obviously is a big reason I came here. The academics are amazing, and my visits were incredible. The team chemistry, I felt like I could really fit in. Kayla Blass is also a big reason that I came to Northwestern. She is one of my closest friends. And she did such a great job kind of recruiting me as well. She's the type of person that I knew that I wanted to be friends with and I knew would be a great teammate, and she has definitely lived up to that.
You tore your ACL your senior year of high school. How tough was that to come back from, and in what way, if any, did it impact your thoughts in recruiting?
So that was a very trying time. Not a fun way to end my senior year, but I had constant support from Tracy, my teammates at Northwestern, the girls that are in my class now. So there was never really a doubt in my mind that I would still go to Northwestern. I signed my letter of intent. It was set in stone, so I knew I was ready to come and ready to play.
Some of our field hockey analysts have noted to me that in studying your game last year, when you were great, I mean, you were Big Ten Freshman of the Year, but last year to this year, they said they felt like your fitness improved significantly. To what do you attribute that?
Leslie Moser, our strength and conditioning coach, she works us so hard, and we were like the polar data, so she's always keeping track of that, making sure that we're staying fit. Honestly, all of that is just from her.
Tell me about that data. What is that?
So basically, she keeps track of how far we run in a game, how far we run in a week, our heart rate, our average speed. And during our off week, before we played Iowa the first time, we upped the running then. And I actually think that really helped going into the tournament. Our fitness was better than it had ever been during the season. And I think that's a big reason that we were able to compete in those big games and win. So,
when you think about upping your game from last year, you, of course, did it individually. Your team did as well. You lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament last year, and it was tied for the furthest that this program had been under Tracy Fuchs. To what extent do you think that fueled some of these things you're talking about in the offseason and upping your conditioning and trying to get to that next plateau?
Yeah, so we beat Iowa twice that season and then had to play them again in the Elite Eight. And I just don't think that we came together as a team in that game. And I think having to play them again in the Elite Eight this year, it was for revenge. We wanted to go to the Final Four. We were so close last year, and we knew we wanted it more this year. And I think we showed that. Lauren Wattis' goal was insane. It was so exciting. And I think that we really, really picked it up in that game.
So you were the Pennsylvania Player of the Year in lacrosse as well, I noticed. Any thought of jumping over and playing for Coach Imani Hiller? Because you may have heard she's got a pretty good program, too.
I have heard about their program. My mom and I have been following lacrosse and college lacrosse ever since I was in elementary school. So it's kind of crazy that, I'm friends with some of the girls on the team, and, there's so much support between both programs. But field hockey is my one love, and I don't think I could ever leave it. So sorry, lacrosse.
All right, just a sophomore. What do you do for an encore now?
I don't know. Just enjoy it. I always want to go back to back, but right now I think the team is just gonna enjoy the moment, prepare for the future, and that's about it.
As well you should. Lots to be proud of. Congratulations, Maddie Zimmer. Have a great Thanksgiving, and again, national champ. Sounds pretty good, huh?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, back on Big Ten today, and you would be hard-pressed to find a more improved group nationally this season than Michigan's defense, allowing less than half as many points as they did a season ago under the guidance of new defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald. A team that was 95th in the nation in scoring D last season is now 7th, playing for a spot in the Big Ten championship game on Saturday against Ohio State. We are pleased to be joined by Michigan's leading tackler, Josh Ross. And Josh, let's start with this. I know I can't wait until Saturday. What's it like for you, the anticipation of a game this enormous? What's it like to go through a week with that looming at the end of it?
Man, weeks like this is why you come to the University of Michigan. It's just such a blessing and honor to be in a position. Me and my teammates work really hard to be in a position. We're just ready to go. It's so exciting, man. You know, we know what's coming up this weekend, but it's going to take the preparation and attacking each day and having great days to have the best day on Saturday.
This is always a huge game. I think there are many who believe it is the best rivalry in college football. That being said, this one is different, right? I mean, there's so much on the line. You got a division championship on the line. I know it was similar your sophomore year as well. So how is this game different when there's something bigger riding on it than just the rivalry, which is already big?
Yeah, I mean, it's a playoff game. And it's a lot on the line, a lot at stake in this game. And we're just ready to rock and roll. You know, this game is more anticipated. This game has a lot more juice. But at the end of the day, it comes down to doing our job, playing our 111th, and having a great week of prep leading to Saturday to have a great game.
You talk about doing your job, and we showed those numbers on the way in. It's incredible how much this defense has improved. How did you regain your confidence as a defense?
Yeah, honestly, just after last season, looking each other in the mirrors, the leaders on the defense, me, Aiden Hutchinson, Brad Hawkins, talking to each other and just realizing, you know, that's not good enough, you know. Us, of course, getting our new staff and getting Coach Mike McDonald, who's such an excellent coach. We just went to foxhole, you know, had a great spring ball, prepared into the summer, into the season, and just kept stacking weeks, stacking days. And, you know, of course, early on, it was a lot more corrections we needed to clean up, but just keep building, kept getting better, and to the position we are now.
You mentioned Mike McDonald is an excellent coach. What makes him so excellent? Why has he been so successful with this group?
Yeah, so what makes him so excellent is how much he leans on leadership, how much he uses everybody, how much he includes everybody in what we're involved in and what we're doing, how well not only us players with the coaches work together, but how well our whole entire coaching staff works together. It's such a team effort, and it's that type of environment of, you know, us working together, us pushing forward, and building to a common goal. And I love Coach Mike McDonald, and I love this university.
You mentioned the leadership on this defense, and Aiden Hutchinson yourself among them. Aiden and David Ojabo have just had unbelievable seasons. To what extent did you see this coming?
Yeah, you know, of course, outside looking in, you don't see the hard work, the dedication that guys like David Ojabo, Aiden Hutchinson, guys on this football team, the work we put in every single day. You don't see behind closed doors what guys are doing, how guys are attacking their days. And honestly, this wasn't surprising for me, you know, especially with David Ojabo. He's a guy that was always so talented. And, you know, as the new year came in after last season, got to work, always kept pushing, always kept working, always kept perfecting his craft and everything he did in any way he can. And, you know, the results are paying right now, and people can see it. But it's not surprising, man. That guy is one of the hardest workers I know. Aiden Hutchinson is definitely one of the hardest workers I know. And, you know, everything is paying dividends to what they're doing now.
Well, you seem like a different player this year as well. I know that you kind of rededicated yourself to your craft as well, and that yoga is a part of that. How did you kind of stumble upon yoga as a way to train for football?
Yeah, so it all started with my high school coach back at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, Coach Phil. And Coach Phil used to tell me, you know, he recommended yoga for me. And we used to do Bikram yoga. And Jeff Phillips is his name. And I always liked it. It was hot yoga, stretching, getting the joints moving, all that good stuff. And I definitely think it helped me in my game.
In what way have you incorporated your teammates into it? Because it looks like there are a lot of guys now who are kind of bought into yoga as part of their training regimen. How did you convince them to join you?
So in the summer, I invited my teammates to come and join in some classes on the weekends during our summer cycle. And they loved it, and we all loved it, and we all kept going back, and we all kept doing it throughout the summer, and it definitely helped our game and helped us come together closer as a team.
What's your favorite pose? My
favorite pose? I would say Just down dog, up dog. One of the poses that I really love, and I was almost able to do it at the end, was the handstand on the forearms with your feet in the air. It's a technique that you have to have, and I almost got it down. I was super close, but next summer I'm definitely gonna get back and get in there and get that down.
So have you stopped doing it then during the season? It was just a summer thing?
Yeah, it was a summer thing. Summer thing. Yeah, I haven't, really been into it much in the season.
So that's part of the way that you are different this year. I'm interested in how Coach Harbaugh is different. I think there was a sense of it at media days. There was something a little bit different about him. I spoke to Aiden earlier this year, and he kind of echoed that sentiment. In what way, in your eyes, is Coach Harbaugh different than he's been in previous years?
Man, it's just Coach Harbaugh, his energy every day. He always had energy, enthusiasm on mankind every single day, man. That's what I love most about him. He's the same guy every day, and he brings that energy, and us players feed off of it. But this year, he's feeding off of our energy more, and it's just such a blessing to have a coach like Coach Harbaugh. Just the drive, the energy he brings for us for practice. It's a blessing to have, and we feed off of him just as much as he feeds off of us.
It's obvious in spending any time around Coach Harbaugh, he's got Michigan blood coursing through his veins. And I would say you guys have that in common, right? Your brother James played at Michigan as well. Did you give even a moment of thought to going anywhere else?
I guess you can say I gave a moment of thought after my freshman year in high school, but it was a done deal. You know what I'm saying? I knew I was going to be a Michigan Wolverine. I knew what time it was. Of course, the recruiting process, went on. But at the end of the day, in my head, it's like I'm going to be a Michigan Wolverine all the way, and I know this, So I ended up committing my junior year, and, the rest is history.
So I don't want to get into painful parts of your career, but you have never beaten Ohio State. Your brother never beat Ohio State either in his time at Michigan. What would it mean in this, your final year, to get that breakthrough win, not just for you, but for the entire Ross family?
Yeah, I mean, it would mean the world. It would mean the world, Obviously, of course, we not only myself, but my teammates, we never beat Ohio State. And it'll mean the world to us. We've been working all year for this moment. We've been working all year for this week. And we just ready to go and stack great days on top of great days the rest of this week, have a great week of preparation, and go get it this weekend.
There is, as you know, a lot of hype around their offense. It's been fabulous. They lead the nation in scoring. How do you prepare for an offense that is that dynamic?
Yeah, they have a dynamic offense for sure, and they have weapons. But at the end of the day, we have weapons, and we got talent, and we got playmakers. So it's just about attacking this game plan this week. Studying our keys, reading our keys, studying our opponent, and having a great week of preparation leading to this weekend.
How much do you think about this game, not just this week, but during the course of the year?
You definitely think about this game during the course of the year, but at the end of the day, as you go from week to week, it's more of a mindset of we're preparing as if we're playing Ohio State this week, every single week. And you have an opponent that you have every week that you have to pay attention to and play close attention to. But, it's times in the back of your head, you definitely think about this game. But at the end of the day, the weeks are in the past, and this week is here now, and the time is now. And we're just ready to attack it, ready to go get it.
It is indeed. Well, thanks for taking a little time out of attacking this week to speak with us. Josh Ross, congratulations on all your success and your team's success this year, and best of luck this weekend.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Back on Big Ten today, Michigan and Ohio State back to their preeminent spot in the college football landscape this weekend. Buckeyes second in the AP poll. Michigan is sixth, so this will be the 24th time these two teams have met, with both schools ranked in the top 10. That is far and away the most, as you can see, of any rivalry. Sports Illustrated's Pat Forde joining us now, as he does every Tuesday. And Pat, as I mentioned, OSU moved up to number 2 in the AP poll. Where do you expect them to be tonight with the new college football playoff ranking out?
I think they'll be in the same spot, Dave. I think they're number 2. I think Alabama struggled enough against Arkansas, and that was an impressive display by Ohio State. Gary Bartas said last week, the committee chair, that they spent a lot of time on 2, 3, 4, which was obviously Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State. Oregon obviously out of the mix now, and if those three were considered fairly close, and one team destroyed a top 10 opponent and the other one struggled with a pretty good Arkansas team, I think that would be all the impetus you need to move Ohio State up to 2, drop Alabama to 3, and then I think we'll see Cincinnati at number 4.
Yeah, it feels like Ohio State was kind of being blocked by Oregon, and they just felt in principle that they couldn't move them ahead. And therefore now, when you have the opportunity, you don't have to worry about the Oregon thing. You can just measure them against Alabama. And to your point, they were certainly significantly better than the Crimson Tide this weekend. This is all subject to change based on what happens this weekend, of course. But Ohio State's offense, I think, was another reason a few weeks ago maybe to hold them back a little bit. They went through a couple of weeks where it wasn't clicking in the way that it had been earlier, and certainly wasn't clicking in the way that it has been these last couple of weeks, where they have just been phenomenal. What do you think's been different here these last 2 games?
I think it's just you've got 4 elite units that are all coming together now. This has always been a very good offensive line. It's always been a great receiving core. It's always been a super talented stable of backs, and it's always been a very talented quarterback. And now, experience together and just maturation and chemistry, it looks like everything is just really locked in now and blossoming. And I think the biggest part of that's probably C.J. Stroud. There weren't too many other unknowns, or at least uncertainties on that offense. I'm not sure anybody saw Smith and Jigba necessarily stepping up the way he did, but with Garrett Wilson and Olave, the receiving core was elite already. Travion Henderson showed right away that he was going to be a great back. Everybody was high on the offensive line all along, and now the quarterback, with given time and everything behind the line of scrimmage, is just performing at an exceptional level. And so I think everything just has coalesced at the right time. And this was a unit that maybe was under a little bit more pressure, too, earlier in the season, like we've got to outscore a few teams. And now I think the defense is playing well enough on the other side, too, that the offense can kind of just perform and do its own thing. And it's just, this is the old complementary football that coaches love to talk about.
Is there a matchup in this game that particularly interests you?
I think it's the pass rush for both teams. As much as I like Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo are so fun to watch and so dynamic, both with 10 sacks tied for the lead in the Big Ten, Ohio State has more sacks as a team than Michigan does by 1. Now, on the other side of that, Michigan's offensive line is allowing the fewest sacks in the Big Ten. And part of that's because Cade McCarthy's done such a great job getting rid of the ball when he needs to, escaping, sometimes, just throwing the ball or whatever he needs to do there. And so I think that what you've seen is an offense that's avoided making mistakes, and there's going to be a defensive line now putting pressure on Michigan. Can they make mistakes? Can they protect long enough to make big plays in the passing game? So I look at both pass rushes and see how can they affect the game. For Michigan, their best players have got to play great. For Michigan's offensive line, they've got to just give their offense a chance to make some plays.
Do you believe Michigan has to win for this season to be a success? We had Nicole and Howard here yesterday, and I swear we could have spent the whole show on this discussion. So, there's a lot to the question, but in your mind, can Michigan lose this game and still have a successful season?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've had a tremendously successful season getting to this point. We came into the year, people were saying, well, maybe Michigan's the 4th best team in the East behind Penn State and Indiana, in addition to Ohio State. They eradicated that doubt for sure. They checked a couple of big boxes, I thought, winning on the road big at Wisconsin and winning on the road in a hard game at Penn State. The 2 big boxes that aren't checked, obviously the loss to Michigan State, that hurt, especially the way it happened. And then, obviously, Ohio State. And do you want to go through a season and have 2 of your biggest rivals both beat you again? No, you don't. But I still look at this and say, if you're 10-2 and don't get run out of the big house, that's the other part of the equation. They have been embarrassed by Ohio State several times in recent years. Play a competitive game if you don't win. And I know there's no such thing as moral victories when you're Michigan playing Ohio State, but it's a sign of great progress, I think, from last year. And then it would be nice to see them perform well in a bowl game as well to really finish this thing off. But I think if you get 10-2 and then you go play well in a bowl game, win a bowl game. I think it's been a very good year for Michigan.
Pat, before we let you go, I do want to ask you about the coaching carousel. I mean, it just gets crazier and crazier. Florida is open now. To what extent, if any, do you think the Big Ten is going to be impacted here? There are reports today. It seems like maybe James Franklin is close to staying. We've had the reports about Mel Tucker certainly over the last week or so. What's your sense of where the Big Ten is in all of this?
Yeah, amazingly enough, considering their coaches have been, rumored with many different jobs, I think the Big Ten comes out of this stable. Is chaos nationwide, except in the Big Ten, where you may have the same group of coaches all coming back. As you said, Mel Tucker, the report there that he's got a huge contract extension on the table. James Franklin looks like we're moving in that direction as well. So while LSU, we'll see where they end up. USC, there's been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of misdirection with both of those. Florida now being open as well with 3 high-level jobs open. There's going to be a lot of residual effect, a lot of dominoes falling around the country. But I really do think the Big Ten can come out of this and say, you know what? We're going to have at least one college football playoff team, and we're keeping our really highly sought successful coaches all intact as well. That's a pretty good year for the Big Ten in football, if that's the case.
No doubt. Pretty good year. Pretty good year for the Forde family, too. Happy Thanksgiving. Does the gold medal get its own seat at the Thanksgiving table, or does it have to share a spot with Brooke?
I think, given her brothers, the gold medal might end up in the mashed potatoes if that were the case. So got to keep the kid humble. The medal will stay off the table and well hidden.